Hi all. So today I thought I would show you my Mollycroft gypsy wagon. If you wanna say wagon, caravan, you can say caravan. This particular caravan is called a Mollycroft. It's called a Mollycroft for the little rigids on it. These little patterns in the wood, they're called rigids. The way the caravan goes in and comes back down, that gives it the name of a Mollycroft. You've got like different caravans. You can have the barrel, like the usual barrel shaped caravan, where it looks like a complete barrel over the top. You can have a ledge caravan, what they call a ledge, because inside it's just a ledge. All these different caravans are different, but this one's actually called Mollycroft Carvan. A Mollycroft Carvan is what the gypsies used to travel in if they had a bit more money than the average gypsy. It'd be like us going in a caravan park and upgrading to a better caravan. That's exactly what he was. So this, even though it's a Mollycroft gypsy caravan, it's not realistically how it would have looked. Very similar to, but not realistic. The patterns you see, well, the flowers, they're not patterns, they're flowers. They would have been hand painted on a real caravan, and on this one they're hand painted. The gypsies spent a lot of time looking after their caravans on the outside, because if you like, that was their home. That was what they lived in. That's what they travelled in. And to them, the appearance on the outside was much also important as the inside of the caravan. So I'm going to take you through my gypsy caravan. So as you can see, this is in 1/12 scale. Now, like I say, it is similar to the realistic, but it wouldn't necessarily have been purple. Maybe they would have had a brown one, a traditional one, and like I say, all the roses, the flowers would have been hand painted. Now, depending on the average gypsy, depending on what type of artwork there was on the outside. Now, for example, this one's got flowers on. A normal gypsy would sometimes put I don't know, animals on, squirrels, birds, that type of thing, and that meant that they looked after their wildlife. So the outside of their caravan was, you could tell what kind of person lived in the caravan by the outside of it, if that makes sense. So my Mollycroft gypsy wagon is actually called, now I named it myself, it's called Gypsy Belle. As you all know, I love pink. I didn't do the flowers on this one, my friend did it. She actually sells caravans and narrowboats, and her and her husband are very, very good at what they do, and she made me this. I think, I can't remember if she made it for my birthday or Chris bought it for Christmas. I can't quite remember, but either which way, I never did the flowers on there. Now, like I just said to you, each flower, each daisy, each leaf, each whatever's on this outside of this caravan was hand painted by her. Now, I have briefly showed you how to do the roses, and I will do a video on it coming soon, on how you would decorate a gypsy wagon, because I have got one that needs decorating up. So I'm going to talk you through my Gypsy Belle. Mollycroft, this is called. So we're going to close the door for a minute. I will take you on a tour on the inside. Now, this is the front of my Gypsy Belle, and as you can probably notice, all the pink roses. She knows I love pink, so she didn't want to do a complete pink caravan, because it would have looked too bright. A traditional gypsy caravan would have had been brown. A lot of the gypsy wagons would have put gold leaf on the outside. So like I say, you could tell what type of person those type of gypsies were by the outside of their caravan. So on this one, all the hand painted roses are hand painted, all the tiny daisies, and then on the door, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit for you to see what I'm seeing, and they're all down the side. See, and they're all up that side as well. So you see, like where the wood comes in and it goes out, they're called ridges. And this is what makes this caravan the Mollycroft, because that is what would have been on the traditional one, the ridges. Then the door is what they call a stable door. That type of doors that you would find in barns and on farms. Well, sometimes a gypsy would have had a stable door, sometimes it would have been a full door. This one's actually got a stable door. And it's got all roses and pink roses and leaves and you name it, it's got at the bottom. Then if I open the top, because the top's also got all roses around the window and around this side, and it's also some of the windows on a gypsy wagon, because if you think about it, it was their home, would have been it would have been a pattern on the windows, because it would have been for privacy reasons, if nothing else. So this one, she's a bit well off. She's got a Mollycroft, so of course I've put a little net curtain inside for her. And this has got a shelf on, so she's able to put her towels. She would hang towels. She would hang her clothes when she washed them in the bucket. She would just rinse them out and she'd hang them on her door, and that's how she'd wash her clothes. So you've got each side of the doors like these little ledges. Now that is actually tacky wax, not tacky glue, tacky wax, and that's where her milk bottle would have been. Now, like I say, my gypsy lady is a bit well off, which is why she's got a milk in a little bottle. Now that wouldn't necessarily happen, maybe not in that box. It probably would have just been a pint of milk or something along those lines, or they would have pint of milk, no, perhaps not. They would have milked the cow and they would have stored her in a jug, and again, this is how much, and I know you can see right down there, this is how much the room they would have had. They wouldn't have had a lot of room, so they had to make use of the room that they had by putting shelves up, by little compartments that were hidden that you wouldn't know necessarily if it was there or not. And the way the gypsies fed themselves was that they made things and then they would go around the village and then they would sell it, like little pegs, things like this, and they would go around the village selling these little pegs or things that they've made to put food on the table. And that's what they did. They made through the day, sold, and then come tea time they would have, if there was a lot of money, they'd have a big dinner, and then that's what they would do. Sometimes gypsies often travelled alone, but sometimes they met up. So you would get like 7 to 8 gypsies, caravans on a field, and then with all the money that they earned during the day, they'd all club together, so you can imagine the banquet they had at night. But that room there is what you see. If you can imagine that in a bigger scale, that's how much room that they would necessarily have. They wouldn't have any more than this. So down here then we've got the shaft. Now this, before I move on to the steps, this is a shaft, what they call a shaft. This would have been put on the horse and then it would have been moved. Now this actually is on wheels, so it does move, but that would have been hooked onto the horse and then the horse would have pulled the cart. Now the shaft has been decorated too. Can you see all the roses on there? All the pink daisies and everything. And it's also up one end of the shaft. It's also on both ends of the shafts. Now, like I say, depending on that, you would find that each wagon was decorated differently to the next. And the reason that was that you didn't have like two of the same wagons with the exact same patterns on, because the gypsies actually decorated their own patterns on their own wagons. And that's how you had different wagons. So even though they would have been, might have get like two Mollycrofts the same, not necessarily they would be the same decoration. Does that make sense to you? So that is actually called a shaft. They would need one of these to pull their wagon across. Then these would be the steps. Now, if you notice, the steps aren't hooked to anything. It's not fixed, because this would have been travelling, they would take the steps off, and I'll show you where they would have been belong, and then they would have pulled, and they would only put the steps there if, for instance, they've pulled up in a field or they've stopped. They would bring the steps out of the back, and then they would bring them around the front. Now, this is my little gypsy lady. I had her made specifically. She's actually got a lot of wrinkles in her face. She's actually got a lot of features in her face, and she's absolutely beautiful. I absolutely love her. She's actually got features in her hands and in her arms as well. They would have wore shawls to keep them warm, because if you imagine, they wouldn't have had big bulky coats. And they would have made their own clothes and their own scarves and that kind of thing. So that's my gypsy lady. Now, she's also got a little dog. Now, I've bought this scruffy old looking raggedy old dog for her to have, and he's got a bone, of course. You've got to have a bone. So this is my gypsy lady. Now, I've actually made her a little necklace. This little necklace has actually got a hook on the end. It's a very small hook, and I made this little necklace so it could come on and off. Now, you would find sometimes a gypsy would wear jewellery. They would. And if they hadn't sold anything through the day, they would sell their little bits and pieces in their wagon to get that food. And if you can imagine, everything was done in this wagon. They would have got married, they would have had children, they would have even given birth in the wagon. There was no hospitals. That's what they would have done. So everything in this wagon is what it was their life, really. So this is a little fancy chair. Now, they wouldn't necessarily have had chairs, maybe stools, but not a chair. But because this was pink and the wagon was pink, I picked it up from the Doll's House Fair. Now, I am going to come back and show you guys how I make my own chairs. But this has got a bit of a story to it. This was my first Doll's House Fair I'd ever been to. And because it was pink, I thought, well, do you know what? I will... I'll buy it and I'll put it in my gypsy wagon, and that's what I had. And it came with this little pillow as well, so it just matched in. Now, like I said, they wouldn't have necessarily had a chair, but my gypsy lady, she's a bit posh, bless her. So this is the side of the wagon. Now, I'm moving the steps behind because I wanted to see where they belong. So as you can see, all the pattern in the caravan, all these were hand painted on. The little daisies were hand painted on, and all these rivets in the wood, that's what makes this a Mollycroft Carvan. This actually goes in and then comes back down. So if I come down a little bit, you're able to see the flowers, and like I say, each flower was hand painted on. So you can see how much work has actually gone into this caravan. And up the top, this is a skylight. Some caravans would have had it, some caravans weren't. all depend on how much they could afford, really, how much they upgraded to, what they could have adapted. So it all depends. But this is actually called a skylight, and you've got, there's acetate obviously here for you to see in and out, and then you've got roses on the skylight and leaves and just beautiful pink leaves and pink flowers. Then here we've got a leaded window. Now the windows actually open and close, as you can see, open and close. And sometimes gypsies would have had flower pots trailing across with flowers, and they would have just, and I keep meaning to put one on here, because that's what would have happened. They would have had flower pots on here. But your standard gypsy wagon is either a barreled one, so it looks a complete circle on the top, or a tinker's caravan. Now a tinker's caravan is completely different again. They would have had rods on the side, and then they would have hung like brushes, brooms, mops, buckets, and they would have sold it on the caravan. So what you saw, you could pick up and give the pennies to the gypsy lady. The wheels, as you can see, spell carried on there. Now she's done some white wheels, some beautiful writing, and each letter is hand painted on. And like I say, they do move. I'm just going to move it forward a tad. And then you've got a back wheel that's painted the same. The front wheel and the back wheel are slightly different. That would be how it was on a realistic caravan. The front wheel would be a lot smaller to the back wheel, because if you imagine, well, it's got a turn, so this is why you've got the smaller wheels on the front, and unlike a car where the wheels turn this way, the shaft does all the work. But this shaft is attached to the horse, don't forget. So this is why you had two different sizes of wheels. Now if I turn it completely around, let me see if I turn it completely around, you get a different feel for it again. So as you can see, all the pink roses on the top and all the pink roses on the sides, the leaves. This is actually called a bay window with some leaded windows in the actual bay window. These windows unfortunately do not open, but it would have been privacy more than anything else. And again, all depending on what the gypsy could afford, depending on what they could have on their van. So if I go down, this is not actually called a hay rack. In here, it would have been called, let me tell you what they would have had first off. Now in here, they would have had, you know, your mops, your buckets, that kind of thing. And they would have slotted it in here, and then they would have covered it. Now if you imagine, you know, all your big bulky items in your kitchen, that's what they would have put in here. So not necessarily for hay, although people do mistake it because it does look like a hay rack. It's actually called a cratch. And then you would get what they call a cratch cover, and it would be sort of like tarpaulin, and they'd put it over the top, and then all the bulky items would be covered and protected from the weather. But that's actually called a cratch. Now if I go down, this again, every caravan would have had one of these. This is called a pan box. Now the pan box would have been basically where they stored their pans, because if you imagine there's not enough room in the gypsy, in the actual caravan itself, they would have had to store their equipment and make use of what was on the outside of the caravan. So this was actually called a pan box. So I'm going to open it up now, because in this pan box, as you can see, you've got all these pans. Now again, all these flowers are all hand painted on. They've actually got tacky wax in them to, you know, keep them in that pan box. Right, and then you've got the lids. I know I'm not focusing, but it will do in a second, hopefully. You get where I'm going with this. And they would have stuffed all sorts in there, all their pans, their saucepans, anything that was pan related would have gone in this pan box, even the lids. So that's basically what this is called. So this is called a pan box. Let me move these out the way for the second. I want to spin you back round. The steps. Now you remember I moved the steps right around the front. Now the steps would belong if the gypsy wagon was in use, which most of the time it was. The steps would have actually been belonged in the crutch. This way it was protected because of course you've got the crutch cover, don't forget, and it's not going to fall out at all from there. And they would have kept ladders, your mops, your buckets, but that's where your steps would have belonged when the caravan was in working order. Now if I turn the caravan again around, it's the same on the other side. So a lot of pink roses, a lot of detail on this Mollycroft Carvan. And if you notice, this side is a little bit different to that side. How is it different, Colette? Well, let me tell you. Again, you've got the opening windows, you've got carriage on the wheels, you've got all the pink roses, so nothing particularly from here down is different. But up the top, there's a little chimney. Now, the chimney would have gone directly where the cooker was. So the cooker would belong here. And if you like, the smoke's got to go somewhere. They would have had the doors and the windows and all that open. But they would have put a little chimney in for the fumes to go outside the caravan, because don't forget they've got to sleep in this after all. Now I'm going to spin it back round again, and we're going to go inside this time. So my roof comes off. Now bearing in mind, this, even though it's a Mollycroft, it's not actually a replica of the real. It's not a replica. What am I trying to say to you? I haven't gone traditional. That's what I'm trying to say. So there's a lot of things in here that you wouldn't necessarily see in a gypsy wagon. So I'm going to start off with the back. Now the back's actually got these pattern plates. Those you might find in a gypsy wagon in the real thing, but each one is slightly that bit different. And they've all got different patterns on. You can sort of make out the little doggy there, and there's a cat there and a dog there licking. So you can make out the patterns. Now I'm going to try and see if I can get you a little bit closer, because I'd like you to see what's on those plates. See? Now, if it shakes, it's because I'm trying to hold it and talk to you guys at the same time. Now at the bottom, you've got these. I bought these off the same lady. One of her friends were doing these. They're actually waxed teddy bears. Have no idea how she's made them. Haven't got a clue. But they smell. One smells of rosemary, and I think the other smells of, I can't think, rosemary and lavender, or rosemary and rose might be. But they're waxed teddy bears. The legs do move, so they can sit down if they wanted to. So we've got waxed teddy bears. Then you've got like a little bowl, and again, sorry guys, it's going to be the case in this one. Sorry. Again, the bowls, the patterns on the bowls are all hand painted, and they would have been like that anyway in the real thing. Right. This is actually a quilt cover. Somebody crocheted this pattern, and my friend Angie, she knows who she is, so thank you Angie. It is definitely still in my caravan. She bought me this, and it came with 2 pillows, all hand crocheted. Beautiful patterns on them. They're actually padded as well, so there's 2 pillows there. And then this quilt cover. Now this quilt cover is quite big. I'll show you how big it is now. Now this I had for Christmas. Didn't realise that it opened, as I usually do. And my friend Dawn, she made me these. And how she's fitted them in here and how she's done them this small, I would never like to guess. Oh, let me see if I can. There. See? They're mini chocolates. How the heck did you get them in there, Dawn? But anyway, Dawn made me them specifically. She makes food and she's absolutely fantastic at it. She has actually taught me how to do jellies, and I think I may do jellies today and show you guys how I do my jellies. So yeah, she was the lady that taught me to do jellies, and she's fantastic at her food. So she made me the mini chocolates in a box. So I've put them in here because of course every girl's gonna have chocolates. And at the back, under this blind, is a lamp. This lamp doesn't work, unfortunately. It's not battery operated. It's just an ordinary lantern. Then you've got obviously the blind that's going through. Then on the side here, you've got like a little toiletry container. Now you've got the little towel at the bottom and then little bottles at the top. Not necessarily they would have had, I'm sorry this is shaky and I'm trying to hold it, and isn't the doorway, as you saw, is not very big. They wouldn't necessarily have had that on a shelf like that, maybe in a cupboard or something, and they wouldn't have necessarily had specific bottles for specific things. It would have just been 1 bar of soap, and that's what they would have done. Right, so we've come down from the bed. Now you wanted to see how big this was. This actually fits a double quilt, but it's all hand crocheted. It's absolutely beautiful, and I was very lucky to have one for my birthday, and ever since, Angie, it's been in my gypsy wagon. So at the bottom then, as you can see, there's patterned on the bed. Now in a real caravan, gypsy wagon, they wouldn't have necessarily blocked this bit off. This would have just come across here, and then underneath would have been an extra bed for the children to sleep in. Because if you think, you would have had, I don't know, an average people that would have lived in a gypsy wagon would have been 2 adults and probably you're looking at about 5-6 children. And there's not a lot of room, as you can probably see, so they had to make room somewhere. So under here would have been the extra bed. Now the little thing I picked up and didn't show you guys was this little board. My friend hand painted all that, the little house on there and everything. She even did the pattern on the top, all down the sides, the daisies on the sides, and then she continued the roses and put them on the back. Really, really beautiful. Then on the side, I'm going to try and show you this way. You've got your jug and your bowl, and then they would have had this, a little bowl with eggs in. Now, I think I made that, the little bowl with eggs in, and it's not that difficult to make either. So I'm going to go over to the other side now. Now this again is a little jewellery box, all coordinated off, all put all necklaces and stuff in, just beautiful. Then this at the back, oops, I'm going to bring this out, that little note set, and I'm going to bring out the jewellery thing for you to see properly. Right, and let me try in my best. I'm really trying hard to keep the camera still. So you've got your little bars, soaps, and you've got your little bottles and stuff. And then the drawer, if I can get it. Oh, yeah, it again. Come on. It opens. when it wants to. And it's got your knives and forks in, and it has got a little mirror in, and it did have a comb set in as well. So that opens. They would have made room, see? A little mirror. What's under here? Oh, these little cups. She did. Can you see my name on there? Now these little cups, they are tiny. They are not big at all. They're proper miniature cups. And they belong, I'll show you, there. So you've got all your spices, your racks. She made me 2 cups. I think this was a Christmas present. She did it all up because I'm still working on caravans, and Chris paid for it, and my friend did it all up because he said I wanted something that I could add to, so I could add my own little bits and pieces to it, and that's what I have been doing. She did that little cups, and she did these little compartments, and I can't get any closer, but they have got pink roses on. So you've got the plates, the spoons. This is actually a water dipper for a narrowboat. I don't know whether necessarily they would have had it in this gypsy wagon. Maybe not. Then she would have obviously had a basket with her fruit and veg in, which I quite like. And then down here, these little rows are just little canisters. And then I do have, like I say, this isn't it's a proper gypsy wagon, but I haven't done a traditional. Now this is the P.S. I Love You. This has to be one of my all-time favourite books. And it's roughly about this couple. The man dies and he leaves a little note for each month to help her grieve because he knows he's dying. And even though it's a sad book, it's so funny. It makes you smile, it makes you cry, and it's a real good book. So I had it printed in miniature, and as you can see, it's proper tiny. The words are all in there. It's a proper book. So that's that. So I'm going to spin you around this way now. You have to bear with me today because I can't got no room. So this is the actual stove. Now I've put like a little teapot on there, little kettle on there. She's making bits and pieces for her tea, so she's got little saucepans. And again, I've just loaded this up and added to it over time. She's got the little mirror. And then in the corner here is the little bread canister. Not flour, sorry. A little umbrella, because she'll need one if she's going out selling what she's making. You could either use for water or oil, but it's a real thin bottle. She's got another bowl that's actually got a pattern on. Camera will focus in a second. There, see the pattern on that? And then this little board, which I'm yet to decorate up. So I'm going to be decorating that up soon. So I have been playing about and adding. So I'm just going to put these back, and then I can show you what I've pulled out. So she would have made room for absolutely everything in there, right? Now what I pulled out was these. So I've obviously got the little jewellery box, as you saw. Earrings, necklaces, bracelets, and they're quite easy to make jewellery in miniature. And then she's decorated the box. And then here is a little notepad and pen. So I've made the little pens, the little envelopes, and the little notepad set. See? And they all come out individually. And that is my gypsy Belle Caravan. So I really hope you've enjoyed that. I've enjoyed showing you guys it. I kept meaning to do it, and I've now done it. So I hope you really enjoyed that and had a bit of history about how the gypsies used to live. If you like, please comment. I love reading the comments. And yeah, like this video if you really enjoyed watching, and subscribe, and I will catch you all very soon. Thank you now. Take care, and I'll speak to you in my next video. Bye for now.